All right, my friends, I'm going to start yakking. Sound good? First off, welcome. Thank you for coming. Light Cellar Open House, very exciting day. How many of you are familiar with Chinese medicine? Done some acupuncture? Yeah. So this class came to me as working on the shop floor. I hear a lot about well, my acupuncturist says I have liver qi stagnation. I don't really know what that means. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's talk a little bit more about that. And also the other day I was inspired because a woman called me on here at the shop and she had TMJ. And so she was trying to figure out what to do for inflammation. She said she'd been working with a practitioner for 18 months, every 2 weeks, and wasn't seeing any changes. And I said, lady, you need a new acupuncturist. So acupuncture is a highly effective medicine. You should see a change immediately, if not within 2 to 3 sessions. You'll notice some really big shifts.
Okay.
Am I on?
Yeah.
We're just doing a little light intro.
A light intro.
A light intro.
Yeah, cool. I'll get out of that. The light. Right here. Okay, well, welcome everybody, and welcome to those online. We had a little issue where everything went black and no sound, so we'll keep the feed going. For those that are online, you can just stay on, come and go as you want all day, but the live stream will be happening. The audio, the video. I'm doing pretty good. Second session. Top of the hour, we're starting at 12. That's my goal. So thank you, Anya, for presenting. Thank you for being on time and sharing all that you did. Yeah. We got a bit of a variety show this morning of numerous different topics. Next one, understanding Chinese medicine. This is Hannah-Beth Kusler. She's been a shop staff member for a number of months now here, and she's been studying Chinese medicine even longer. What year are you in?
I'm in year 3.
Year
One
3?
more year.
All right,
yeah,
go.
Very excited.
Yeah, and obviously you probably don't just jump into studying TCM without already having your toes wet.
Yeah. So herbalism and holistic medicine, holistic nutrition is my background, as well as yoga. So.
Yeah, okay, well, I don't want to take any more of her time. We'll just dive right into it. We got about 45 minutes, including questions, and then we'll have another break. If you're curious, there's a sauna and cold plunge going out in the back patio. Yeah, and we got some probiotic seasoning on some heirloom popcorn. So we freeze dried some pickles that we'd made. So it contains all the probiotic benefits and properties, and it's a beautiful popcorn seasoning. It's good for the gut. So
good.
All right, we'll take it away.
All righty. So welcome. Let's get into it. I might talk a little bit fast, but there will be time for questions, and I hope my pictures show up. There's a nice picture here of some needles. Okay, anyway, so like I said, this class was inspired from I've been working with an acupuncturist. They say I have spleen qi deficiency. I don't know what that means. First of all, always ask your practitioners if you're not sure. But Chinese medicine has a long history. It can be complex and hard to understand. At its heart, it's really about balance. So harmony between health, well-being, and sustainability. Any system in disharmony will tend towards dysfunction, disease, suffering, and eventually collapse. Chinese medicine is a system of medicine based on the idea that our vital life force, or our energy, our qi, flows along pathways in the body called meridians. Blockages and stagnations can arise in our organs and meridians, causing disease. Chinese people have been using this system for thousands of years as a preventative medicine to reduce and eliminate dysfunctions, in turn avoiding or eliminating disease. In Chinese culture, many beings are raised knowing their constitutions and inherent imbalances. Knowledge is power. This insight allows life choices to be made that are in support of whole health radiance. So a combination of herbal medicine, acupuncture, cupping, tuina, moxibustion movement, and diet therapy are prescribed to bring the mind, body, and soul into greater balance. Do we all know what cupping and tuina and moxibustion are? So I'll just go over it quickly. So acupuncture, obviously with the needles. Cupping, using glass or silicone cups and fire to pull the fascia away and allow the qi and the blood to move better throughout the body. Tuina is Chinese massage. It's not super relaxing. It often uses quite fast and quick movements and can actually be a bit uncomfortable, but highly effective. Under the tuina falls in some really interesting techniques that aren't used as commonly nowadays in the Western world, but like beating people with sticks or kind of flogging them with bales of straw. Yeah, that's all Chinese medicine. Weird. Moxibustion is using the herb mugwort and burning it. It holds a really high heat, so you can hold it over your belly button or in certain acupuncture points, and it'll feel the whole body will get warm. It's really incredible. So really helpful for like menstrual cramps or any like stagnation, like cold stagnation, pain in the legs and stuff. They also really love to use bleeding, which is another really interesting technique that we don't use a ton here in the West, but again, like super effective. If you have a bruise and you bleed it, bruise is gone, movement, like full range next day. So pretty cool stuff. Holistic wellness has been my passion for many years. Diving into Chinese medicine, my question became, turning to nature, how can observing her shifts guide our own wellness? When I began studying Chinese medicine, this connection really came together for me, how important it is to prioritize balance internally and externally. Understanding our own constitution and the way the external environmental shifts affect our internal nature. So how do we support ourselves through these changes? Chinese medicine acknowledges the 5-element theory. Ancient Chinese philosophers look to nature to explain the ways we are similar and yet unique. They noticed that nature holds 5 different energetics. These became known as the 5 elements and have since been related to various organ systems and processes. In our bodies, to maintain balance with our external world, we must focus on honoring and balancing these elements. In doing so, we will promote true health and well-being, living a radiant and vibrant life. So let us dive a little deeper. There's some chairs over here if you guys want to sneak in. All right, so Chinese medicine basics. We've got our qi. So qi is our vital life force, our prana, our energy in the broadest sense possible. Qi is universal and embraces all manifestations of energy, from the most material aspects of energy, the earth beneath you, your phone, flesh and blood, to the most immaterial aspects, these being thoughts, movement, emotions, light, heat, nerve impulses. Life is a gathering of qi, and this is often stated and referenced in many ancient Chinese texts. So qi is in a continuous state of flux and flow, endlessly transforming from one state to another, never being destroyed or created, only changing in its manifestation. Yang energy, a thing can only be understood in relation to something else. Yang and yin are terms to describe relative opposite manifestations of qi. Yang refers to the manifestations of qi that are relatively immaterial. Function, light, expansion, space, ascension, hot, dry, warmth, bright, action. In terms of the body, it is our back, our top half, and our more exterior parts are considered the more yang areas. Yin, on the other hand, are relative as they're understood together, so taking everything as a whole. And this refers to manifestations of qi that are relatively material. So substance, form, condensed, solid, heavy, descending, wet, cold, moist, dark, passive. In terms of the body, it is the front side of our body, our lower half, and our more interior parts are considered the yin areas. So yin and yang coexist. Even the most solid yin state contains some energetic vibration, this being the yang energy. And nothing is so kinetic or yang that it does not also contain some material substance of yin. And even mass has light, as light has mass, as Einstein tells us. So there's always that balance. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the black and white, the yin and the yang. Always some yin in the yang and the yang in the yin. TCM foundation. So as with most ancient cultures, the root of all early medicine is found in philosophy, which is translated to the love of wisdom. Traditional Chinese medicine theory is heavily imbued with Taoist philosophy. Lao Tzu is recognized as the creator of the Tao Te Ching, or the I Ching, and many other foundational Taoism doctrines. Those practicing Taoism aim to live in accordance with the Tao, or the way. The universe has a particularly inherent orientation, and this can be a difficult concept to grasp because Tao is neither physical nor non-physical, yet orients and connects everything. In Taoism, the universe is viewed as having a cyclical nature. Cycles of change, extremities, and balance are characteristics of this view. The universe is constantly changing according to a pattern called wuxing, meaning the 5 elements. Everything that exists in the universe is an aspect of qi. Change is constant, and so qi remains in a perpetual transformation between condensed, actual and existing, and expanded, potential hypothetical state of existence. These 2 different states of qi are manifested as yin-yang, which are the 2 mutually exclusive yet complementary states of polar extremes found in everything in the universe. Taoism views human beings as microcosms of the universe. To understand humans is to understand the universe. As such, the human body is viewed as having its own wuxing pattern. This is known as the zongfu. The zongfu model has particular organs that correspond to each one of the 5 elements. The organs have either a yin or yang property assigned to them, which, if not in balance, will result in particular illnesses. Remedies in TCM then seek to restore balance of the qi and the yin and the yang. So here, I know it's kind of hard to see, it's a little bit small, but this is basically 5-element theory summed up in a picture. So the green is our wood element, and that controls the liver and gallbladder. Fire is our red element, and that controls the heart and the small intestine. The earth controls our spleen and stomach, our area of digestion. Metal is in charge of the lungs and the large intestine, and water controls our kidneys and urinary bladder. And the way this picture is all laid out is actually how they interact. So there's the generating cycle that goes around on the outside. So wood generates fire, fire generates earth, and so on and so on. And then there's overacting and constricting cycles, and that's the kind of star in between. And so if any of these are out of balance, that's typically when you start to see these imbalances and diseases arise. So getting into, do we have any questions so far? I'm keeping up? I know I'm talking about a lot here. Understanding your own constitution. So working with a practitioner is always a good idea, as it will provide you with the best results. We are very complex beings. That said, you can do your own research and kind of deduce what's going on in your own body to give you a little bit of a guide towards what you want to work towards. Every individual has a unique constitution that shifts over time. Your constitution affects how you feel and behave, and how you respond to imbalances physically, emotionally, and spiritually. When we live out of balance with our constitution for long periods of time, disease will appear. Our constitution is made up of inherited and acquired factors, and having a better understanding of your own constitution will guide you to make supportive decisions to increase your health span. Body constitution can be classified into 3 categories. We have the neutral body constitution, which is a healthy being with a strong immune system, living in a balanced state with optimally functioning organs. This is obviously the ideal state. However, based on how our parents were when we were conceived and how we've lived our lifestyle so far, we also can tend to have yin or yang imbalances. So a person with a more yin-based constitution will be susceptible to chills, have kind of a phlegmy cough, some water retention, and prone to being easily tired, inactive, and kind of dislikes the cold weather. A person with a more yang body constitution is susceptible to fever, headaches, insomnia, more prone to irritability, hyperactive, dislikes hot. They're often thirsty and sweats easily. Within that, we have 8 other constitutional types. So we have the neutral person, again, always our baseline. These are a physically fit person. They're emotionally stable, energetic. They have good sleep habits and a healthy appetite, and adaptable to environmental changes. They don't tend to get sick when the weather changes. They're pretty happy overall. They sleep very well, don't have any digestive upsets. That is kind of, again, the ideal state where we're all working towards a balanced constitution. Of course, that doesn't always happen. So we have a chi deficiency constitution. This kind of person will tend to have shortness of breath. They'll be easily fatigued, a lower immunity. They sweat easily with very little physical activity, and they're sensitive to changes in the weather, and it usually takes them a bit longer to recover from illnesses. A yang deficiency type of person often feels cold in their hands, feet, and their abdomen. They feel unwell after eating cold food, really sensitive to that, and they dislike the cold and humidity. A yin deficiency type constitution often feels warm, even sweaty in the hands, the palms of the hand and the soles of the feet, especially at night. Night sweating is very common. Often having a dry mouth, dry nose, dry stools or constipation, and tend to dislike hot and dry weather. Phlegm damp constitution is more prone to oily skin and hair, excessive phlegm production, always kind of mucousy, really craving food high in fat and sugars, dislikes humid and wet weather. So our phlegm damp constitution often looks like the person with the candida overgrowth, kind of like that craving of yeast and that. Damp heat people are more prone to acne on the face and the neck because the fire is flaring up. They'll often have a bitter taste in their mouth. They feel fatigued and heavy, a sense of incomplete defecation or dry stools, and excessive secretions in the reproductive organs with an aversion to warm and humid weather. Our 2 final constitution types are blood stasis people, prone to forgetfulness. They're often irritable. They've got a bit of a dull complexion with pigmentation. They get random bruising. They dislike the cold and prone to bleeding disorders and abnormal growths in the body. That's just because the blood isn't moving well, so things start to build and grow. And our chi stagnation people, they don't cope very well with stress. They're very prone to mood swings, anxiety, depression, They do a lot of sighing, often feel heart palpitations. They don't really like fall, winter, or rainy seasons, so they're only really happy in the summer. And that's because there's heat going on and things are moving, and they're like, yeah, this is a good season for me. So based on this, maybe you have an idea of kind of where you fall in that. You know, you hear certain things and you're like, yeah, that sounds like me. You can be, like I said, a combination of all of these. And this can be a really helpful way for you to understand why maybe you feel a little more irritable in the summer if you have like a hot constitution, or why you get a little sad in the winter if you already have like that cold body constitution. And just knowing these little bits of information can be really helpful, so that if that season comes up and you know you don't deal super well with it, what then can you do to implement to enjoy it a little bit more? So integrating kind of what we know here, we've dived into some of the basics of Chinese medicine and the theories behind its science. You've probably heard a few more terms, new terms, or maybe heard them explained in different ways. Even the foundations are quite in-depth. So I've spent 3.5 years now studying, and the first 2 years I felt like I was just kind of thrown into this blaze of like, what are these words? None of it's really making sense. At its heart, it seems pretty simple, but still I'm trying to figure it all out. So Chinese medicine, I think, is one of those beautiful medicines that you can come back to over and over again. And one of the things that I love, it being based on the I Ching. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the gene keys nowadays with Richard Rudd. That's a pretty popular thing. That is also based on the I Ching. So it's like astrology and numerology and how all of these ancient systems work together and really can help us predict or like describe why we feel certain ways we do, or why we fall into certain patterns or behaviors throughout different stages in our life. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting that way. So now having a better understanding of qi, yang, and yin, and how they interact and influence each other gives you some new perspectives about what is happening internally as well as externally, and how those states can really dance together. Having a better idea of your constitution from this view hopefully has planted some seeds for you to explore into deeper. So for example, we've transitioned now into our spring season. So we've got a lot of this new energy, the growth, the rebirth, the excitement. Our yang energy is growing. Summer is our most yang season. So that's when, if you have a hot constitution, you're probably not going to be loving your life because you got a lot of heat internally. So that's when you can look to diet and lifestyle ways to really cool your body from the inside, so that you're not experiencing like heat on heat. Some examples of these are like, if you eat a lot of spicy foods, that's going to be creating more yang energy in your body. Not a good idea to eat spicy foods in summer, because then you're just going to be hot, hot, hot and pretty irritable. Also, like another example, if you're more of that phlegmy, damp constitution and it's like been a wet kind of rainy spring season, then you don't want to eat cold raw foods, because then you're just creating more of that internal dampness, that cold. And again, like, it's going to affect your bowel movements. You're going to feel foggy in your brain. You're not going to sleep super well. You're going to feel heavy in your body, unmotivated to do things. So it's really understanding your constitution and then learning the cycles of nature and how we can balance those. And I think it's a really beautiful thing to dive into a little deeper. There's lots of really great blogs out there on how the seasons transition, how we can support ourselves through them. Like I said, working with a practitioner, they can give you a bit more insight into your own personal constitution. Acupuncture and herbal medicine, really beautiful way to help balance if you've got some imbalances going on. And then once you come to a more balanced state, or even as you're like moving through, working through some imbalances, then you can flow into the season with a bit more support behind you and maybe not feel as like thrown off by the changes happening in the environment. So pointing out some practices and some herbs that can support our overall vibrancy. Having a consistent sleep routine is really important. So this is going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. Ideally, you're asleep by 11 p.m. And this is based off the idea of our 24-hour circadian rhythm clock. I'm not sure if many of you have seen that. The Chinese have this clock, and our organs move through, the energies in our organs move through every 2 hours. So 11 p.m. is the time of the liver and the gallbladder. If we're asleep by 11 p.m., our liver has a chance to fully nourish our blood. So our liver is really important for storing our blood. So when we're asleep, laying down, the liver is happy, the blood is in the liver, and then we wake up the next day not feeling so out of whack, unrested, unwell. So 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. is the time of the liver, and then it goes to the gallbladder from 1 to 3 a.m. So being asleep between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., really important. If you tend to wake up with like nightmares or really vivid dreams between those hours, that can often point to a sign that maybe your liver or gallbladder is having some things going on. So it can be really interesting to notice as you move through your days, if you come into certain patterns at the same time every day. For example, our spleen time is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. So if every morning you wake up and between 7 and 9, you start to get really bloated for no reason, your spleen is speaking to you, and your spleen essentially controls the basis of all things. So it creates your blood, it absorbs your food and your water, it assimilates it, and it transforms it into our energy, our chi. Okay, I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. So our chi, we have chi from two ways. We have chi from how we were conceived, the health of our parents when they conceived us. And we also have our acquired chi that we get to choose through our lifestyle that we live, our sleeping habits, our eating habits, all of that kind of stuff. So our congenital chi is what it's called, what we get from our parents. Once we use that up, it's gone. And that's it. And then you start to see some like kidney essence deficiency where you're like really unwell, mentally not well, you decline, you have no motivation. It usually happens a lot towards the end of people's lives. But our acquired chi that we have control over, we can revamp that. And that goes with like living in tune with the seasons, resting more in winter, being more social in summer, those kinds of things. And so our spleen chi is the organ in charge of that acquired chi, because it is going to assimilate all your food, which is one of the main ways that we get our chi. And then if it's healthy and it's active and the spleen is working well, then you add that chi into your body and you're happy and you're good. If your spleen isn't working well, then you're not actually getting more chi. You're just kind of like passing through some food and just in that state of kind of stasis. So yeah, the spleen is probably one of the most important organs in my view, especially in the modern world. The spleen is really affected by overthinking, and many of us have a tendency to overthink. The anxiety, we book our schedules full from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. or go from A to B, and that busyness, that rushingness can really take its toll on the spleen over time. Yeah, so that is why the spleen is so important to take good care of. Pretty much everyone who comes into clinic has some sort of spleen chi deficiency, and that's pretty typical, and that's okay. We can change that. We can support that. We can work on that. So one of the really big things for taking good care of the spleen is having a regular and consistent eating schedule. It is more important when you eat than what you eat. 100%. If you train your body and your spleen knows, oh, at about 9 a.m. I'll have some breakfast, around noon, 1 p.m. I'll have some lunch, and then 5, 6 p.m. I get dinner, maybe I get a snack in there, and you run with that cycle, spleen will be the happiest. And again, like I said, no matter what you're eating, it's going to be like, yeah, happy bowel movements, good sleep, feel good energy throughout the day, wake up feeling rested. So it's really important to have a regular, consistent eating schedule. Now that said, Chinese medicine has really interesting views around a lot of things, especially as we got into like modern world and understanding. Fasting isn't something that a lot of ancient Chinese texts talked about, but modern Chinese doctors do get into the benefits of fasting. It can be really helpful to help regulate your hormones, and if you're dealing with some spleen issues, not to say that you have to eat consistent 3 meals every day, but if you eat 2 meals or even just like 1 meal and a snack, as long as you're eating at the same time, your spleen can predict that, and it can begin to like build that yang energy inside to digest your food and assimilate it. And it's a lot happier that way. And so the spleen also prefers warm cooked foods and drinks always over cold raw foods and drinks. Even when it's really hot outside, it's much better to drink room temperature water than cold water. As soon as we drink that cold water, that goes into our gut and our spleen and our stomach, and it freezes everything. So no digestion happens, no assimilation happens. You can be drinking 3 liters cold water a day and still feel dehydrated. Now that said, if you have a pretty hot body constitution, there's going to be some layers to that. You're not going to want to drink warm water or room temperature water, but your spleen still wants to drink warm water, room temperature water. So it's kind of playing around with that a little bit. And like I said, whole raw foods takes that much more energy to assimilate and digest in our spleen and our stomach. So in the summer, if you're a hot constitution and it's really hot out, some cucumbers or a salad can really help to like cool and balance. But overall, if you can even like eat your salad with a nice like warm or cooked soup or some vegetables, it's going to much prefer that. Having rituals in your days not only gives you a sense of purpose, but in completing them, you'll build self-esteem. This is another really key teaching in the Chinese medicine ways, just having that kind of regular schedule that you move through. Your body really likes routine and consistency. Not to say you have to do the same thing every day, but if you have those kind of things that you look forward to, like I said, regular meal times, consistent sleep times, social times and all that, and then adapting that as the seasons change. So getting, more social in the summer, in the spring, hibernating a bit more in the winter, really good that way. Keeping your neck covered. So the wind is evil and it will attack you. I know. When I first heard this in school, I was like, pardon me. So we have 6 external evils, we call them. We call them evils. So we have the wind is the worst one, and the wind will carry all the rest. If you think of like a boat, the wind's the leader, and he's going to carry all the rest of them with him. So the wind attacks you and makes you sick, likes to enter through the back of the neck. So always good to keep a little scarf or like shawl around your neck. We have cold, obviously. Cold is another evil that will attack you. Hot, summer heat, dampness. Dampness, no one likes dampness. Everyone has dampness, no one likes it. And what's the other one? Dryness. Yeah, dryness. Dryness, another evil, not good. And so these show up just how they sound. Dampness, you'll start feeling heavy. You won't want to move. Maybe you're a bit more phlegmy. The dryness, you get the dry nose, dry throat, dry stools, dry skin, dry tongue, dry mouth. The heat, you're going to feel those heat sensations, the sweating, spontaneous sweating. The cold, you start to feel cold, you get the chills. But yeah, the wind brings them all in. So if you can avoid the wind, keep your ankles and keep your neck covered all the time, except when it's really hot in summer, then it's acceptable to have bare ankles. That's our one exception. But yes, remember that the wind is evil and it will attack you, and to keep covered from it. Also really important to keep your feet warm, especially those of us who menstruate or are going through like menopause in our lives. All of our major energy meridians start or end in the bottoms of our feet and around our ankles. So when we expose them to cold or to like, even if we're walking around on like concrete floors or tile floors, our feet are feeling that cold energy. And overall, general rule of thumb, the body doesn't like to be cold, it likes to be warm. When we're warm, our chi and our blood move better throughout our body. Our joints can be lubricated. We're not seeing that like stiffness or pain as much. So it's really important to keep your feet warm, to keep everything flowing very nicely. If you are a person that tends towards the like anxiety or overthinking, there's a really nice point right in the arches of your feet, right at the bottoms. And if you just like, if you're sitting down, you can just kind of like grab into your arch of your foot and press into it. And immediately you can feel the kind of release of the energy from your head ground back into your body. It's a really nice one. I like to do that at the end of the day. Okay, so another really important point that we're focused on is gentle daily movement. This can be walking, yoga, qigong, tai chi, Pilates. If you're not moving every day, you're going to lose your movement. We lose that range of motion, we lose the mobility, we lose the desire to move. So it's really important to keep your movement in motion. Things in motion stay in motion. So, right? Yes. And like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, I always love in the summer when all of the like kind of older Chinese people come out and they'll do their qigong in the morning in their park. You're like, yeah, that's good stuff. And have many of you guys done qigong or tai chi? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Hey, like the simplest movements and you feel it all through your body and like your energy moving. It's pretty good stuff. And that just goes to show that you don't have to do like a hard run or a big sweaty workout or anything to like get that energy activated in your body. And it's actually better for your longevity to not burn through all your energy in that way and to do these more sustainable types of movements, like a nice walk, some yoga, any of that. Drinking tea, another very important point of the Chinese culture, can be medicinal or just for pleasure, making it a part of your daily rituals. So I really like to start my day with a nice cup of tea and end my day with a nice cup of tea. Feels like a bookend chapter kind of thing. You're like, start of the morning, quiet, don't talk to anyone, sit down with my nice cup of warm tea, feel my digestion start to move, get ready for my day. And then at the end of the day, like after dinner, have that nice cup of tea just to get everything moving again and like settle down, reflect on the day for a bit. So you can make it a ritual. Yeah. Oh, depends on the day. It depends what's happening. I really love reishi spore tea. So I'll just we have a little extract powder here, mix that in some hot water, easy. Astragalus also first thing in the morning. Astragalus really gets the qi going. Depending on where I'm at in my cycle, jujube dates are really good for nourishing the blood. So I usually around when I'm bleeding, we'll have like a big pot on the stove. I'll throw water, jujube, some ginger to activate the warmth, and some goji berries to get the qi flowing. And I'll just kind of have that continuously boiling, sometimes with some cinnamon if I'm extra cold. And then I'll just drink that throughout the day. Yeah, so there's lots of, and Western herbs are great too. I love nettle, I love oat straw, super good for our nervous system, keeping us calm and tonified that way. Yeah. But any kinds of tea, it's really whatever you like. And I always say that compliance is more important. So if it's something that you can integrate into your day and it's not going to be this big thing and you're more likely to do it, then if it's drinking a cup of nice pleasure tea, enjoy it, do that. I'd much rather you do that than try and have to suck back these nasty herbs that you're like, oh God, I got to drink that tea. I really don't want to. Yeah. Yeah. Honey. Honey's good. Honey's a good way to get the herbs down because they don't always taste great. Yeah. And life is too short. And one other thing that I've observed working with people over the years is if you don't enjoy it, but you're making yourself do it in the name of health, it's not going to make you any healthier. If you're like, God, I got to get my greens in, no, skip the greens. Don't force yourself. It's more to sit down and be like, oh man, this soup's going to be so good. I'm going to love it. Way better. You'll have way better results. Joy is a big part of it all. And prioritizing time in nature, super important. Get outside every day. Even if it's nasty and snowing, just pop your head up. You're like, hey, it's -40. I'm going to go back in now. Just to check out what's happening outside. Because that, again, keeps us connected with the external world. We get to see what's happening. Oh, it is really -40. I should add some more ginger and some more cinnamon into my tea today. Really keep my body warm. Definitely putting double socks on, get my long johns on, maybe my scarf and my toque, There's all these little things that we can do as well. Spending time in nature, grounding, getting your bare feet on the earth, super good for discharging any of those negative impulses that you picked up, negative energy. You feel more settled. You come home after a nice forest walk and you're like, oh yes, life's good, So really important. Yeah, some of my favorite Eastern herbs, like I said, astragalus, feng qi, really good for promoting the movement of qi in the body. So if you're one of these people that tends towards more of a qi stagnation or even qi deficiency, where you're always kind of feeling tired, you're sore, you're achy, you're not sleeping super well, astragalus in the morning, really nice idea. I have drank it before bed. I consider myself sensitive, but sometimes I drink things and I'm like, oh, that was fine. And I'll be like, yeah, I'll have some astragalus before bed. People are like, well, I don't know what you're doing. You're crazy. Kept me up all night. So maybe avoid astragalus before bed. Goji berries. Do you all know what goji berries are? Little wolf berries. They're super great to make as a tea. I really like to combine them with jujube dates. Do we know what jujube dates are? So jujube dates are a whole other category of date. We do have them here. They're not moist and squishy and chewy like medjool dates. They're kind of more like a dried apple. The outside is a little bit crispy and the inside is spongy. That's probably the best way to describe. I know it sounds weird, but they taste really good. They taste like a dried apple. They do have a pit in them. So I'll throw a handful of goji berries and probably 6 jujube dates and 2 liters of water and let that boil, cinnamon and ginger or whatever. And afterwards, you can, drink your tea, strain the water, and then you can snack on the goji berries and the jujube dates. Careful of the pit. Don't eat the pit. Not good for your teeth. Or you can like throw them in your like oatmeal if you're an oatmeal person. I also really like adding these herbs to bone broth when I make bone broth, because then you just get extra medicinal benefits from your bone broth. It's the best thing ever. But yeah, jujube dates, I also love to just keep a bag in my car. And when I'm driving around, I'll like snack on a jujube date. They're really good for building our blood. So if you're having that day where you're like feeling really tired, really good to enhance your energy with the use of blood building herbs like jujubes. Reishi, one of my favorite mushrooms of all time. In Chinese culture, reishi is known as the mushroom of longevity. And this is because of all of the actions it has, super anti-inflammatory, super antioxidant, really supportive of just like overall life and longevity. Gynostemma, are we familiar with gynostemma? God, it tastes awful. That's one of those herbs for me that I'm like, oh. The spring dragon tea, I used to drink it, and I'd be like, oh, God, I just got to get it down. But I found when combining it with lemon, the acid and the gynostemma kind of like neutralize a little bit, so it's not as like ooh. And now I really love it. So yeah, gynostemma is super good, super nutritive. If you really can't handle the taste of gynostemma, nettle is a beautiful alternative. Nettle, one of our Western plants, super high in many minerals, vitamins, very nutrient dense, nice and green. You can also, I was telling a lady earlier, take the nettle leaf, grind it down into a powder, throw that in your smoothies or your soups or your stews, whatever you're doing. Good way to get some greens in there. So I was like vegan for 8 years, like raw vegan for a while. And you know, it's been this beautiful shift that all of these vegans have been like, no, organ meats are where it's at. I think it's the coolest thing. But I just remember like eating like pounds and pounds of greens and being like, ah. And nowadays I eat like no vegetables. I know I feel bad saying that, but I eat fruit, I eat lots of organ meats. And one of the biggest things that prompted me to get back to eating animal products was studying Chinese medicine, because I felt great for 7 years of being vegan. And then it was like year 2 of school. I was exhausted all the time. I couldn't sleep. I had no energy. Trying to teach yoga, and I'm just like a hot mess. I can't study. My brain is not working. And one of my professors was like, dude, you need to eat some meat. And I was like, no, I can't. Like, I've identified myself as a vegan. All my people know me that way. Like, I can't do that. And I went home that night and I cried for hours. And then I cooked myself an egg, and it was the best thing I had ever had. I also grew up on a cattle ranch, so my grandma like cried tears of joy when I started eating meat again. It was hilarious. She's like, "Can I cook you a big steak?" I was like, "I would love that." But yeah, and the reason why animal products are so important is because they build our blood. So even it doesn't have to be red meat, like chicken, fish, any of those, really good for supporting the blood building. And as we get older, we start to use up kind of our body fluids, our yin fluids, that moisture in our body and our blood. So it's really important to continually add to those through our acquired chi, what we're eating. Yeah, so animal products, super good for you. Back to our herbs, cinnamon, ginger, 2 of my favorites, very accessible everyday herbs. They're very warming in nature, help to move the chi and the blood through the body. So if you do have any like pain or areas of like tension, stagnation, these are really good herbs for you to incorporate every day. Really nice to add again to like your oatmeal or your congee or your rice pudding, whatever you're making, just adding that like extra little added benefit of moving action. And licorice, gansao, this is in pretty much every Chinese herbal formula that you'll ever get. It's because it's a harmonizing herb. So it really brings all of the herbs together and allows them to function a bit better. And it's a bit sweet, so it can make the medicine taste a bit better. Yeah, yeah. The licorice, so you can get like licorice root and it's sliced, and you can boil that and make a decoction with it. Or you can powder it. It's a little bit tougher because it is a root, but you can sprinkle licorice powder on stuff. And it does taste like licorice. I don't like the taste of licorice, so that's a tough one for me. I'm like, ugh. Like this has licorice in it, but yeah, super good, and good for like the spleen and the blood and the chi and all those great things. Yeah, yeah.
Boil herbs or just
steep them. Depends on the herb. So if it's a leaf or a berry, then they're fine to just steep for like 10 to 20 minutes or whatever it is, and you go about your day. If they're more of like a root or a heavier, like a mushroom, to better extract the constituents out of them, it's better to decoct them. So boil them on the stove for like 10, 20 minutes. Yeah. But again, depends kind of what your intention is with the herbs and what you want to do. And there's a whole really great blog post out there on like extracting different constituents in different ways. Some herbs even prefer to be decocted twice. So you do a first boiling and then you keep that water and then you do a second boiling. And that's when you get like the full spectrum of the benefits. Yeah. And in like, not nowadays, especially not in our Western world, but a lot of Chinese herbal formulations, you'll go to your little herbalist, Chinese herbalist, and they lay out these sheets of basically parchment paper. And then this guy is just like throwing all the herbs on the papers, and you end up with these little sackets. And every day you take your sacket and you boil it, you throw it in water. So let's say you start off with like 4 cups of water. So you boil it in there until it reduces to 2 cups. And then you add 1 more cup of water, and then you boil it till it reduces to 1 cup. So you've got the super concentrated brew at the end, and it's a pain, and it usually makes your house smell nasty, but super highly effective for whatever you're working on. It's a whole nother way. I studied Western herbalism before Eastern herbalism, and it's really interesting how the Chinese use herbal theory on such a different level. Like a lot of the times in Western herbs, you'll see maybe like 5 herbs in a formula, and that's like pretty low, and we use a lot of single herbs, and I think there's really beautiful benefit in that. The Chinese, they'll throw like 20 herbs in a formula. And you're like, well, these 5 all do the same thing as do these 5, but you know, we got to have them all. We're like, okay, sure. Like it's been interesting to me, but personally, I have found quite an effect in that way as well. So it's just kind of what calls to you and it feels good. Yeah. Yes. Gynostema is a really great nutrient herb, super anti-inflammatory, really high in antioxidants, contains tons of vitamins and minerals. Yeah, we sell it just on its own. It's kind of like a non-caffeinated alternative to green tea, although it does have quite a funky taste. It's kind of like one of those like really bitter, but like not green teas that you'll get at a Chinese restaurant or Japanese restaurant. Yeah, it's like bitter, but also strangely sweet. Yeah, yeah, I don't know how to, it's a weird one. You got to try it.
It's fine for the first like
yeah.
And then it just like instantly goes like a bitter.
Yeah. And you're like, oh.
Like kind of form is like I want to keep it longer.
Right. The nutrients. Yeah.
But it just seems like after a minute and a half, it's just like
it's got a taste. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And like Gynostema is one of those herbs that you can rebrew it multiple times. So if you throw it in like a French press and like pour your first cup of water over it, flush it out, drink it, then you can throw more hot water in, you can brew it 3 times. And that way you get all the constituents and maybe without some of that nasty taste. No, it doesn't. No. Yeah. 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 Gynostema? We sell it here. Oh yeah, of course. I think yeah, all of these herbs we sell here. Yeah, so we have them in their raw form, and we also have the spring dragon tea, which is a really beautiful mix of Gynostema, goji berry, and there's 2 other herbs in there, maybe astragalus. And they come in little tea bags, and you can just throw them in. Those guys you can brew 3 times, keep the tea bag, and drink it throughout the day. Yeah, and we also have it at the Elixir Bar if you want to try it before you commit to a whole box. Yes. Yeah. Usually I say like 2-3 years is kind of like the max on dried herbs. There are different schools of belief out there that like after 1 year they lose their benefits, but I don't believe in that. I think they hold things pretty well. Yeah, so I'd say like 2 to 3 years. If it still has a little bit of like a smell to it or like it doesn't look totally dead, go for it. Yeah. It depends how you store it. Yeah, and it's gonna kill it a bit faster. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So if the acupuncture there was this triple warmer.
Yes.
It's a triple warmer.
So
Where is it?
yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, so the triple, okay, so we have our 10 organs, our spleen, stomach, liver, gallbladder, small intestine, heart, large intestine, lungs, and then we have our kidneys and urinary bladder. Now there's this set of extraordinary organs, we call it, called the pericardium, which is the outside surrounding the heart, and the sanjiao, the triple warmer, the triple burner. So the sanjiao is a system of 3 levels within us. So we have our lower sanjiao, our middle, and our upper. So it kind of speaks to the body fluids in these areas. So like the lower is in charge of like the bladder, the kidneys, the middle is in charge of that spleen, stomach, and then the upper is kind of the lungs and the heart. A lot of the times if you have like some water retention issues or water metabolism issues, it'll be because of the sanjiao dysfunction in that. So it's kind of the whole body. Again, these are like abstract theories that we can't really name too well in the West, but they do exist and we acknowledge them. The closest thing that I've found helpful for me is to relate it to the lymphatic system. So it's how the water and the fluid is moving in your body. Yeah. That help a little bit? Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, so your base constitution will stay pretty similar. Now, that being said, certain life events can throw you way off in one way or another. But there's a really interesting school of theory that one of my professors studied. And so depending on the year you're born will depend on your body constitution. So if you were born in like a wood deficiency year, you might have some more issues with your liver and gallbladder. If you're born in a spleen deficiency year, you might have some issues with your digestion. And that tends to be pretty true. Now, it's not as simple as the year you were born. It was also like when you were born in that year and like what the weather was like in that year and all these kinds of things. And the astrology. Yeah. So yeah, there's a whole other school of theory on like Chinese astrology and using your time of birth and your day of birth and like that astrology chart to treat you and predict what things you're going to come up with in life. Yeah. That's called time acupuncture. If you ever want to time like a clock, TIME. Yeah. I do. Yeah. Dr. Alex Wong. He's at Body Mind Synergy. Alex Wong. Body Mind Synergy Clinic.
That's long.
HUANG. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
It's called time. What?
Time acupuncture. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Cool. Well, thanks for your ears and your attention and your good input and feedback.
Well, thank you so much, Hannah-Beth.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thank you.